Hi, my name is Peterson, and I've been working with Dr. Sean McCulloch on the shared shortest paths and graphs problem this summer. Basically, an overview on the idea is if we have a graph of vertices and we have multiple journeys with multiple source and destinations, then we're trying to route the journeys throughout the graph so that each path and each journey has the most efficient way of getting to their destination vertex. And here we have a graph. The journey is just a starting vertex and an ending vertex, and you want to find a path along that. In this instance, the path would be 1, 4, 6, 7, and then the cost would be the sum of the weights along that path. Now, Nash equilibrium is when you have a graph and you have different journeys along that graph, and if there's a Nash equilibrium, then no one journey wants to go off by themselves and take a different path that might give them a more efficient cost. In a strong Nash equilibrium, that means that no coalition of journeys wants to go off together and share the cost of a different path to improve their individual costs. And sometimes that can be a real problem to try and attain, impossible even sometimes. Like in this instance, we have a graph with 3 journeys, the first one going from vertex 1 to 6, the second one from 1 to 5, and the third one from 1 to 7. And at the beginning, they all have a Dijkstra cost of 5, but in each of the 3 scenarios below, 2 of these journeys form a coalition to improve both their costs, but one of the journeys gets left out each time. And this is going to form an infinite loop because in each of the scenarios, the one journey that gets left out is going to want to persuade one of the other journeys to leave the coalition that he's in currently and join him to form a new coalition. And it's just going to keep going and never actually attain the strong Nash equilibrium. Even though this is really hard to attain, it's very applicable in real life. One really good example is bus routes. If I own a company and I'm trying to decide where to put the bus stops along a bus route, you want to place them so that the people walking to the bus stop have to travel the minimum distance, but then they get to come together and share that route as long as possible to optimize their cost. Now, the method that I'm actually using is a heuristic I've been developing because, as far as we can tell, this is an NP-complete problem. So we're basically just trying to guide the algorithm to give us the best possible result that it can. Not that a strong Nash equilibrium is attainable, we're just trying to get the best result. So my method includes tied Dijkstra paths, which in this case we have 4 diagrams, each showing the same graph and the same journey. The journey goes from vertex 1 to vertex 5, but each of these different diagrams has a different Dijkstra path that it can take, and each of these Dijkstra paths have the same cost. So in this case, this journey has 4 equal cost Dijkstra paths. The first one going from 1 to 4 and 5, the second one going 1 to 3 and 5, and so on. And each of these Dijkstra paths have a cost of 9, which is the shortest path that this journey can take. So in my algorithm, we want to keep track of all 4 of these because basically what we're going to do is compare the paths of each journey and try and form overlappings to keep track of, to try and find the best common path for them to share. And the more Dijkstra paths that we keep track of, the bigger our sample space is to form these groups. The group creation we have below is an example of 2 journeys, the first one going from 1 to 9 and the second one going from 1 to 10. The first journey has 2 separate Dijkstra paths, each of equal cost, and the second journey has 3 equal cost Dijkstra paths. So what we do is we take each path of journey 1 and compare it with each path of journey 2, and then we keep track of how these journeys overlap, how these paths overlap with each other. So for instance, in the first group, journey 1 and journey 2 overlap on vertices 1, 4, and 5, so we keep track of that. And then the second row, we keep track of which journeys this overlapping occurs between, because we might have more than 2 journeys and we want to know which ones actually can take this path. And every subsequent row in the vector below that keeps track of the actual paths they share this overlapping upon. Because if we keep track of the tied Dijkstras, we can't just say, oh, well, this overlapping is shared by journey 1 and journey 2, because they might have more than one path and they might not share that overlapping on every path that they have. Once we actually have formed all the groups, we try and rank them by the most optimal groups to choose, which we find as being the groups that have the most vertices shared and the overlapping and the biggest number of journeys actually sharing that overlapping. And we also let the user specify how many groups they would like to try and find better routes along, and whether or not they would like specific journeys to be included in these groups. So once we actually have the group, we try and backtrack to and from it. In this example of backtracking, we have 3 journeys and with sources 1, 2, and 3. And they start sharing a common path at vertex 8. It really isn't important what the common path is after that. We just know that they start sharing it at 8. And what the algorithm does is it goes through every vertex in the graph and first checks to see if that vertex is adjacent to where the common path ends. And if it is, then it takes that vertex and it's like, it kind of asks the journeys, well, you guys are sharing this common path starting at vertex 8. What if you extended it to this adjacent vertex and you all shared that edge too? And then you routed your paths back to your sources individually. Would that be better than just to stop sharing your common path at vertex 8? And we keep track of their costs, and then we go to the next adjacent vertex, and so on. And we keep doing that until we run out of vertices, and then we compare results. We pick the most optimal result by deciding which result has the most journeys improving, and then if there are more than one results with the same number of journeys improving, we take the total cost and choose the most efficient routes for everyone. And then when we're done with that, we compare it to what the heuristic has come up with as a result from the past 2 summers and hope that it's better than what has been given to us previously. Thank you.